Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Luke James, not the singer. If you want your music reviewed or some promo, you can hit up Luke at redmattersite.com. That's S-I-T-E. You can also send your questions for the show there. And make sure you follow me up on Twitter and Instagram at LukeJamesBGN to stay up to date on what's going on. So thank you, everybody, for joining me for the second episode of the podcast. The first one was actually received very well, so we're going to keep things going, because we're going to start off with some very serious white-on-white crime, Machine Gun Kelly versus Eminem. Now, I do know a while ago, you guys might remember seeing me on Twitter saying that I wasn't interested in anything MGK related, and that's still true 99.9% of the time, like hand sanitizer. But this beef here is one of the biggest things that happen in hip-hop, so it doesn't really make sense for me to ignore it. Obviously got to speak on it, people have been asking me about it, so we're going to start off breaking down MGK's track, and then we'll take a look at Eminem's response called Killshot. So for some brief history, MGK had made comments about M on a prior Tech 9 song and had also made posts about Eminem's daughter Haley, which then prompted Eminem to get at him on Kamikaze. I already covered all that in my Kamikaze review, so if you want that scoop, you can go back and watch that video on the YouTube channel. But we're going to jump into MGK's diss track to Eminem called Rap Devil. And this was honestly much better than I expected it to be. I'm not someone who really goes hard for MGK. I can't really even name 5 songs by him. I do know I've reviewed a couple of his projects and wasn't overly impressed. So I had very, very, very low expectations for this, especially for him to go at Eminem. But for him to go at Eminem and do as good as he did, pretty impressive. Not saying it's a great song, but still, just to have the balls to do that was cool. I just really appreciate that he went directly at Eminem rather than firing off a bunch of subliminals as a lot of rappers do these days. So the beat on this was kind of hard. I thought the production was alright here, the flows are decent, but he doesn't really have near the amount of quotables that Eminem has in his Killshot song, which we'll talk about in a minute. So there's only so much to be said here about this track, and some of his approach was definitely a little bit corny. From calling M's beard weird to saying that he could never look up to M because he's taller, just some pretty dry responses, you know what I'm saying? That's nothing overly clever to say, just making fun of someone's appearance in that way is kind of corny unless maybe you can flip it or get at something that's glaringly strange about them maybe, but, you know, just saying that you're taller than someone and your beard looks weird. Not really that great, but anyway, those are just a couple of things that stuck out to me right off top. But in spite of that, there was some clever shit on here too. I thought the reference to Eminem's song, My Dad's Gone Crazy, was kind of cool. There was one part where MGK told Haley that he thought she was right about that, so that was kind of interesting because she was actually featured on that song when she was a child. And it was kind of funny when he said that M's knees were weak from old age, so the real Slim Shady can't even stand up. Not that 40 is even old. I don't know where this shit started. I mean, you even see people on Twitter talking about you when you're 30, like you're ancient. Like, what are you doing on Twitter, man? You should be looking after your kids and doing this and that. But believe me, man, I'm over 30. I do all that shit, and I still get my tweet on. Other than that, though, like I said, there's not a whole lot to really get into with this track. And I thought that auto-tuned hook was trash, man. You guys know I'm not big on auto-tune a lot of the time. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But if you're doing a diss track, like, you gotta come with a much harder hook. I think that would have dropped way more sting on this project. Like, it would have just made it hit a lot harder if you had done that. Or just take the hook out. Just do an all-out bar fest, or as much as a bar fest as MGK could muster, you know what I mean? Just go in for the full length of a track, rather than coming in with this shitty auto-tune hook. I didn't really think that was a good look. That was another thing that I'd take some points off for, but it is what it is, man. The beat was still decent, came together all right for what he was trying to do. Hey, that's what it is. But I'm just saying hooks matter. I notice sometimes when you have discussions about beefs, people talk about diss tracks and say the hooks don't matter, the beats don't matter, and I understand it is mostly about what you're saying and just really trying to take someone down a couple of pegs. But it still matters. You still got to have a good beat and a good hook for the overall song to be good. That's just my opinion. I always, open up a can of worms when I say that the beat on Ether was trash, that I didn't like some of those lines on there because, cockafella, gazy, that shit to me is just very plain. But I do plan on actually doing a segment on the podcast where I do break down Takeover versus Ether and say which one I like better. You already know, obviously, and just break it down. I might even have someone on to sort of debate me about that, so that could be fun. That's for another day. But MGK also acknowledges on this track that Eminem is dope. Eminem is a legend in his own right, no matter how you feel about him, and MGK even had some tweets saying that. But it's kind of weird to do that on a diss track. Like, you're supposed to be roasting someone, just killing them, letting them know where their place in life is, not to fuck with you. So then when you get on there and you're just saying how great they are, you're really just giving them more ammunition. I understand it's a respect thing, but he gave Eminem a lot of ammunition because M took that and definitely ran with it in his diss track. MGK even implies a couple of times that M was trying to stop his career by contacting different people and getting him shut out of radio stations and other outlets, but that seems like a stretch to me because I really doubt that MGK was that high on Eminem's radar. I'm sure there's plenty of other people he would blackball or, try to keep out of the game if he really wanted to. Not MGK. I can't see him really going out of his way to do that. So that was kind of cheesy. MGK at one point says that Eminem even dropped Kamikaze because of him. So that even further highlights the delusions of grandeur that MGK has going on. That just lets you know where he's at with his head. But he knows what he's doing, man. He's got an EP coming out. I see that. This is really probably the biggest that MGK has ever been. So in that sense, he wins. But I think, if we're looking at the diss tracks, it's definitely Eminem who won, because now we're going to talk about his response called Killshot. And there is way more happening with this one, so this part will probably go on a little bit longer than that first bit. I did think the beat on this was cool. It's just a very simple piano sample, nothing incredible, but it works for Eminem just to snap over top of. And M didn't really bring a hook on this. He just goes off for about 4 minutes. I think there was a bridge or something along those lines near the end of it, but I really like that approach because it's straight to the point with no nonsense. He's just going in, not fucking around, trying to drop some sing-songy hook, thank God, because that's the last thing we need to hear from Eminem, is a singing hook or a pop hook or something like that. So this was definitely a good approach. I like that he did that. And I also like how he really refutes, twists, or responds to pretty much all of MGK's lines. I thought that was a good approach because Rap Devil definitely supplied a ton of fuel and ammunition, as I had just said moments ago. I already brought up how Kelly praised Eminem in his track, and on M's response, he calls it out when he spits, "Wait, you just dissed me? I'm perplexed, insult me in a lie, compliment me on the next." That was a pretty cool line, and I also thought it was cool how M was referring to Kelly as Stan on this track. Obviously, that's a reference to the song Stan, and M says, "Here's the autograph for your daughter. I wrote it on the starter cap." So he's basically treating MGK like the Stan he is, from what he said in his own song, from those tweets, to just knowing that Eminem has birthed so many of these white rappers, and they have always showed love to Eminem for sort of opening those doors and doing that. Now, there are some cheesy moments in this one as well. Just like I called out MGK for some of the shit that he was saying, we gotta call out Eminem for some of the out-of-touch stuff that he was saying. Like in one instance where he refers to MGK as a mumble rapper, and that really did come across as an old man just shaking his fist, yelling out on the lawn like, "You damn kids, you goddamn mumble rappers, I don't like them mumble rappers." Because as much as I don't fuck with MGK, I would not call him a mumble rapper. That just felt a bit out of touch, but the good far outweighs the bad here still. Although I have seen people also calling out how he says, "How you named after a damn gun when you got a man bun." That shit was kind of funny, kind of cheesy. I could see it going both ways, because, I guess as a balding guy, I ain't going to show that much love to someone with a man bun. Excuse me as I clear my throat. I'm just having my morning coffee here. You know how we do, keeping it cool and casual on the podcast, but we're going to keep it going. Another thing people were calling out as kind of lame about this Eminem track was how he was punching down on Kelly because of the difference in their status. But the thing to me is, if you're going to get into a beef, you really have to do whatever you got to do, man. It's like a street fight. You want to kick someone in the dick, pull their hair and tie it into their asshole hairs, then kick them in the ass. You got to do whatever you got to do to win a street fight, just like you got to do whatever you got to do to win a rap beef. And honestly, if you're just going to be a little fly and you're going to come up at a big frog, the fuck am I talking about? It makes sense, but still, I'm just going off. If you're going to go at somebody you shouldn't be going at because they're going to have the weapons to get you, frog going to eat that fly, Eminem is going to call out and say that he's got the sales. He's going to say that he's put up these big numbers and that he's done all these things. And it's fair for him to do that. I can't believe I just talk about flies and frogs, man. Getting all out of hand on this podcast, but that's how we're going to roll anyway. But God damn it, you can say whatever you want to say, really, in a beef track. If you're beefing with somebody and you have that stature, you're higher up in your status, then God damn it, do what you got to do, man. I don't think there's really, like what other approach was Eminem supposed to take? He really kind of gutted MGK from all angles. He refuted his lines, called out some of his lines. He's speaking on his own status and numbers and sales. And we all know numbers and sales aren't everything. Believe me, I know that. But even still, does count for something, and in a beef, you really can make some points. So Eminem did flip some of these ideas in solid ways. Kelly was out here calling him out about his age as if it's too old to be 40 and doing rap, but Eminem spit that even at the age of 45, he's still outselling MGK, which is true. He even brings up that by 29, he had 3 albums that blew, also true, and he takes it a step further by saying that back in 2002, he had so much money he could burn it all in front of Kelly. Maybe not all of it, but he could burn a bunch of it just to show you that he's not fucking around. My favorite line though, I thought this one was one of the deadliest jabs, is when he said, "I'd rather be 80-year-old me than 20-year-old you." That was some vicious shit, man. Just to say you'd basically rather be in a wheelchair shitting yourself than to be fresh, young, and 20, because at least being the 80-year-old him, he would have those laurels to rest on and whatever. Although, you know, I guess in hindsight, now that you think about it, like being 20-year-old anyone would be good if you could kind of keep your knowledge and start over. I think we've all thought about that, you know what I mean? Imagine if you could go back in time with what you know now. Just imagine all the changes you could have made and how much better you could have done. You could be writing songs before they even came out, kind of like that movie Hot Tub Time Machine, you know what I'm saying? But even still, I thought that was a good line. So I understand what he was saying. 80-year-old Eminem certainly will be remembered for a lot of different shit. I can say, trust it, I got a crystal ball. There are just infinite quotables all over this thing, whether saying that his biggest flops are equal to Kelly's greatest hits, or putting Kelly's name up there with Ja and Benzino. There's just a lot of different approaches he takes. And I actually like that one as well, man. That was one of the funnest, most craziest times for beef, back in the day when we had Murder Inc. going at it with Shady. 50 Cent had backed down against Ja. There was all kinds of songs going on there. Rumors of restraining orders, people getting stabbed. You guys know the history, or if you don't, you can look it up. But that was a really fun time for beef, man. A lot of great tracks came out then. In particular, there was that song on Obi Trice's album. What was it called? What you gonna do when shit hits the fan? Oh, you gonna stand and fight like a man? Might have just been called Hits the Fan, but that was a hard-ass track. That had everybody on there. Dr. Dre, Emma, I think, was on there. Obi Trice. Crazy Dre production. Getting off track now, but I'm just remembering those times, man. Those were definitely some glory days. But to take it a step further, there was even what I thought was a little nudge at Joe Budden when M spits, "Who else won it? Attempt fails, Budden L's." Seems pretty clearly that's a little nudge at Joe, like he's trying to get him to come out, because Joe has obviously been a very hard critic on Eminem and has said quite a bit of shit on his podcast as well. So there you have it, man. Like, he had all kinds of lines on here. But I think the line that probably most people are talking about comes close to the end when Eminem spits, "The day you put out hits is the day Diddy admits that he put out the hit that got Pac killed." That shit was absolutely savage, man. Obviously, he's just joking around. He says he's just kidding around at the end of it. Some people I saw on Twitter and social media were just taking it seriously, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Oh my God, he's the ops. This is ridiculous." People just losing their minds over. Come on, man. It's just Eminem just fucking around saying that shit. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, man, obviously Eminem wins here. But with MGK as a target, it's not overly impressive. Look, we can bring it back to the frog and fly thing. See? Man, I'm smart. That shit comes right back around. Tie that shit together just like a Seinfeld episode. You know what I mean? A frog eating a fly ain't that impressive. But if a fly ate a frog, man, that'd be some wild shit. That might even happen in the rainforest. I don't know. There's so many crazy creatures and bugs out there. There might be a fly that eats a frog. I ain't gonna tell you because I don't know. But even still, it's just not overly impressive for Eminem to take out MGK. If he had taken out someone who was a better lyricist, someone who was maybe more respected, then by all means that would have been impressive. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that he roasted him like a Thanksgiving turkey, man. You know what I mean? I gotta let my inner nerd speak. It's like summoning Knights of the Round on a goddamn imp. Just some serious overkill. You still won. You still did it. But did you really need to do all that? Hey, maybe you did, just to prove a point. But hey, it's what you gotta do in rap beef, man. You gotta obliterate your opponent till there's nothing left. However, as I said earlier, this is definitely a win for MGK because I don't think there's ever been a time where people have been talking about him more. MGK isn't usually a topic of discussion or conversation regularly, but now he is. Like, for me to sit here and do this little podcast episode opening up talking about MGK, ain't gonna happen no other way, but hey, here we are. He got into it. He's got his EP coming out. He knows what he's doing. There's no such thing as bad publicity because going back and forth with one of the most popular rappers of all time is definitely going to help anybody out, man. It's a good look. So that's why I kind of understand Eminem in that interview when he was saying that he didn't want to respond at first, because what does he have to gain from it? He's not going to win anything. Even though he obliterated him, people are still saying, "Oh, this wasn't a good track. Oh, this is a shitty beef," and blah, blah, blah. But hey, that's kind of how it goes. If he didn't respond, those same people would be saying that he's a pussy. Why didn't Eminem respond? He's scared. He's shook. He doesn't want it with anybody, da-da-da-da-da. But how the hell is Eminem supposed to respond to everybody? Like, I'm not sitting here trying to be the Marshall Mathers defense squad. I'm not a paladin with a big shield in front of him. I'm just saying, how can he respond to everybody in the exact right way to make everybody happy? It can't happen. It won't happen. You can't do it. But in this instance, I think he did what needed to be done. And hey, I was kind of impressed. A little bit. Not too much. It's just MGK. But still, I'm glad he responded. This shit has been played like, damn, by now, like hundreds of millions of times or some shit. I know it's going crazy. So he's done pretty well for himself with it. If we're being honest, though, I just kind of wish the Pusha T and Drake beef kept going, because that shit got crazy fast. That escalated unbelievably quick, and I thought it had potential to be one of the best back and forths in a long time. I'm not saying Drake can hang with Pusha, I'm not saying it would have been even, but that beef, man, that got everybody riled up when that shit dropped. That Pusha T diss was one of the best diss tracks in a long time, just because of all the information that he leaked about Drake, putting that shit out there about his son, just basically blowing up his release, although, you know, didn't hurt Drake's release. Scorpion did mad numbers, but you guys know what I'm saying. I mean, that would have been much more surprised to hear him talking about his son before Pusha put all that shit out there, talking about some of the other things that Drake was working on. That was just like a surprise attack, man. That was some Metal Gear Solid. That was some Snake shit. You know what I mean? Can't really make that sound with my mouth, but you guys know what I'm saying, man. He snuck around there, took that shit over. That was dope. But, you know, it is what it is. Even this beef right here has everybody horned up. You got Royce on Twitter asking for beef from whoever wants it, so if anyone jumps in, he's going to get involved. Even Jay Electronica came out because of his, you know, he came out of his fucking lean-to, or wherever he is, just to call out Eminem for that Diddy line. But I cannot believe in 2018, people are still going so hard for Jay Electronica. Yes, he's given us some gems. When I put this post up on Twitter about Jay Electronica, everyone's like, have you not heard Exhibit C? Yeah, did you not hear Exhibit C? How about that Exhibit C? It's pretty good. Yes, man, come on, that shit is great, legendary, but it's also from 2009, man. Come on, can we be real here? That's like 10 years ago. You got to give me more than that. And I know he has other songs. I know he has some other stuff out there. I'm just saying, if we're looking at his overall body of work, like 2018, you guys are still really hyped for Jay Electronica, like he's really going to release something. Maybe he will. I mean, by all means, hey, I'll eat both my feet and be fucking sliding around on a skateboard or whatever I got to do. But as of right now, like whenever Jay Electronica trends on Twitter, I'm just rolling my eyes like, what the fuck? What is he saying now? Everybody going hype for Jay Electronica, but hey, still, this was a lot of fun, man. I'm glad that MGK and Eminem have this shit going on. I don't know if it's going to go on much further. I'm not sure if MGK is going to respond to this kill shot. I did see on some social media posts, he was just saying that it was a leg shot, took too long, da-da-da-da-da. But we'll see where it goes, man. If the shit gets better, maybe I'll talk about it again. Maybe I won't need to. Like, if it's just one more track comes out or it's nothing interesting, I won't bother. But we'll see what happens. That's what I got to say on all that. We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into some horror movie talk, man. I heard about this Candyman remake. I'm kind of excited and interested about that. Also watched a great movie called Terrifier, so I'm going to speak on that. Probably won't be as long as this segment, but hey, it's all good. This first segment went on for a while. That's how we roll. Stay tuned. Some more good shit is coming up.
Hey yo, this is Mike Seatown from the Dead End Hip Hop crew, deadendhiphop.com, MikeSeatown.com. You're here listening to the Luke James podcast. Like it, love it, dig it, all that.
All right, guys, welcome back. Shout out to Mike Seatown from Dead End Hip Hop for hooking me up with that drop. Hopefully going to get some more of those drops from some indie artists I reviewed, some other people on the YouTube circuit, just some of my friends, you know what I'm saying? Thought it would be cool to show them some love on this podcast, and they're helping me out too by giving me something to put in those little spots. So shout out Mike, shout out to everybody who sent them in so far. We're going to keep it moving. We got talks of this Candyman remake coming up, and I am very curious about this, man. It's supposedly going to be remade by Jordan Peele. It's sort of in the beginning stages. I don't think it's all out come to fruition yet. Like, I don't think everything has been agreed on. They're just sort of talking about it now or whatever. But this is big news to anyone who came up in the 90s. If you came up in the 90s, those movies probably had you shook as hell, man. You can probably remember watching some of those at your first sleepovers or slumber parties, whatever the hell you called it, and everybody being scared as hell to go into the mirror. So I'm going to explain this because I think some of the younger people might not be familiar. Basically, Candyman has a hook for his hand. I think he was an old slave who got eaten by bees or some shit like that. Like they put honey all over him and bees ate him up. That's how he became the Candyman. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong because it's been a while since I watched this shit. I only did the minimal research, you know what I mean? Just to kind of set the tone here. But he was one of the few black slashers. I can't think of many other black slashers who were out there. He was played by Tony Todd, which is pretty cool. And in the movies, you make him appear by saying his name 5 times in the mirror. So you go Candyman, 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 Candyman. I'm going to stop at 4 because I do have a mirror in this room and I ain't trying to fucking die on my second episode of the podcast. I'm not going out like that. But it really is just like that Bloody Mary urban legend. I don't know, some of you guys might remember, you go in front of a mirror, you say Bloody Mary 3 times, I think it was, and then she's supposed to show up and eat you or cut you in half or do whatever the hell Bloody Mary is supposed to do. But as I said, you might remember playing games like this at a sleepover way back in the day. I don't know if kids do shit like that anymore since they got cell phones and tablets, but back in my day, we had all kinds of dumb games like that, man. We always used to be doing dumb shit, using our imagination and creativity. You don't even got to do that anymore, man. Hell, you can just load up an app on your phone. You can probably go on Snapchat and there's like a Bloody Mary app where she appears on your face or something like that. I would not be surprised. But whatever the case, I think a Candyman remake has a lot of potential to it, man. especially with Jordan Peele behind the wheel because of the great work that he did with Get Out. He just seems to be one of these guys he's really working towards the top. He's got a lot of respect right now. People want to work with him and have him tied to their projects. But I just hope if they do decide to do this, that they bring Tony Todd back, man. Just like I said in that last episode, it is very hard to replace an iconic slasher with somebody else. They already tried that shit with Robert Englund on Nightmare on Elm Street when they did that remake, and that was worse than Feline AIDS, man. That shit was just sad, miserable, and terrible. I did not like that remake at all. It's one of the worst movies I think I ever have seen in my life, straight up. So I understand sometimes you got to find someone younger to carry the franchise on and keep it going, but especially if this is just going to be a one-off remake, just one-off, a remake of Candyman. God damn it, bring back the boy Tony Todd, the man Tony Todd. All due respect. Definitely got to bring him back. But we're going to move on from that, man. I just think the idea of a new Candyman is very cool. We'll see if that happens. If you guys are familiar with Candyman, I want you to let me know. Like, if you got some Candyman stories, if you're a bit older like I am, you might remember trying to play that shit in the mirror, scaring yourself, scaring your friends. You can let me know. But the movie I watched recently that I really wanted to talk about is called Terrifier. You can check this out on Netflix now. They just put it up. Although keep in mind I'm in Canada, so what I see might be different than what you guys see. But it was released back in 2017. As far as I know, it was a short. A couple years before that, maybe it was 2016, but then it did well, so it became a full movie. And this is just the perfect movie for anyone who's looking for a good old-fashioned slasher flick, man. There's no deep story or crazy character development here, but tons of creepiness, a lot of cat and mouse action, and loads of gore. I swear to God, this shit had me grimacing within the first minute because you see this woman with a brutalized face. It's just crazy, man. Even within the first 5 minutes, you see someone get killed, but that lady with the face reminded me of that lady who had her face eaten by a chimp. I don't know if you guys remember that. That happened a couple years ago. This girl got her face mauled and ripped off, and she had all these surgeries. But that's kind of what this shit looks like, and it's just really creepy. So I like that they set the tone right from the beginning. They're not playing games. They're letting you know what it is. And I think it's going to be a love it or hate it type of movie. You know what I mean? Horror movies are always like that, especially the ones that get very gory. The main killer in this movie is a creepy clown with jagged teeth, which is, a little bit of a horror trope. Because I'm sure you guys know movies like It, Stitches, and the ever-classic Killer Clowns from Outer Space, man. If you don't know that movie, you have got to see it. They're turning motherfuckers to cotton candy. It's kind of cheesy, but creepy and scary at the same time. Just a fun movie, but the tropes that I'm talking about in this movie, that's kind of the whole point of it, because it is supposed to be a throwback to those classic slashers from the 80s, maybe even the 90s, more so the 80s, because it is a very gritty flick. And that was sort of the style they had going on in the 80s. So you're going to have all kinds of tropes in it, like that creepy old lady who thinks her doll is a baby. There's always a creepy person walking around who's like warning people or just being weird for the sake of being weird. You got people trying to run away, but they're tripping over invisible shit as the killer just walks and is stalking them. So this movie knows what it is and is unapologetic about it, man. I always find that funny, though, in those movies. People are running. They just can't get anywhere. They're tripping over shit. They can't keep walking straight for any reason. They can't run straight everywhere they go. They could be in a wide open field and they're tripping. Oh my God, no, don't kill me. Oh my, I fallen again. Oh my shoe. Oh my socks. Oh, it's like running on ice in the Super Mario Brothers 2 world, in that ice world, man. You know what I mean? When you're with Luigi and you're just fucking tripping and slipping all over the place. That's what it's kind of like. So I find these tropes just to be hilarious. You get the other trope where the killer gets knocked out and the victims could kill him and just end the movie right there. But instead, what do? They run away and the killer inevitably comes back. You see the shot of the killer laying there on his back after they hit him with a 2x4 or some shit, a Louisville slugger to his skull. And then a couple minutes later, he's gone. It's like, come on. This shit happens 3 or 4 times in this movie. And it just got to the point where I was laughing. I know they're kind of doing it on purpose. It's like, if you see somebody who did the shit that this guy was doing and you knock him out, I think you're pretty safe to kill the motherfucker. Like, you got to decapitate him. Somebody's head is getting bust. You got to take his arms and legs off. You got to do something. Because in this movie, they witness him cutting a guy in half who's just hanging by her ankles from the ceiling, which is the most gruesome shit probably in the movie. I almost had to turn my head. I think I did, actually, because that got wild. There's another scene where he's walking around with a breast vest like Ed Gein. Or you might even remember that old Simpsons episode with Mr. Burns when he's walking around saying, see my vest, made with real gorilla chest. I think that's how it went. But that's kind of what it looks like, just very creepy shit. But come on, man. You have got to kill somebody if you've seen them kill all kinds of people, and now you got them knocked down. Why wouldn't you do that? But this is just a fun movie all around. You are going to get a bit of campiness and cheesiness to it because the killer is a clown. He acts a bit silly. He kind of dances around in some spots. But he doesn't dance as cringeworthily as in that It remake. Remember that It remake where he's doing that little jig and he's just dancing? He's got his hands between his legs. He's bouncing up and down. That shit was just... that kind of took me out of the movie. kind of a cool shot, but it was really weird and stupid at the same time. So I didn't really like that. But you even get a supernatural element in this movie as well. At the end of it, it kind of leaves it open for another sequel, and maybe another sequel, maybe another sequel after that, because you know how slasher flicks do, man. If you really like slashers, this is just a must-watch. If I had to compare it to any other movie, I'd probably go with the Hatchet series because it's in the same vein, just a newer take on the slasher genre, updated, but still keeping true to that old school shit. So check this one out, man. I thought it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it is on Netflix. I don't know where else it's available right now, but I'm sure you can find it anywhere on the internet. And up next on my watch list is that new dark web movie, the Unfriended Dark Web. I'm kind of excited to watch that because I did watch the first one. That one, you know, characters were very hateable. The way it's shot, I can see being hit and miss because it's all on basically a computer chat where everybody's on webcam and all this crazy shit is happening. But I thought it was pretty cool. I think it's kind of interesting how as technology advances, we get these horror movies that involve the technology advancing. So with this one, the first Unfriended, there's like a ghost that's all up in their computers fucking with their shit and killing people off. You know, it's just kind of cool. It's just keeping up with the times, putting a different spin on it. So that was kind of fun. We'll see how the dark web is. I'm not exactly sure. But we're going to switch this segment very quickly and just talk about a game that I've been playing recently. Because the last segment is going to be about wrestling, about the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So I'll give that its own segment as I break it down and talk a bit of wrestling. But very quickly, I want to say that I played that Mega Man 11 demo. I'm a huge Mega Man fan. Anyone that knows me personally knows that. I still have a bunch of the cartridges here on Nintendo. I'm looking at them right now. 1, 2, and 3. 2 and 3 would be the best, of course. 1 is the one that started it all, so we got to give it love. After that, things got kind of fishy. I mean, they were still fun Mega Man games, but they weren't as good as 2 and 3. Of course, you got the Mega Man X series. Dope as hell. Mega Man X1 is unbelievable. But I believe I only played Mega Man X1, 2, and maybe 3. I think there's like, I don't know, someone can help me out. How many Mega Man X games are there now? There's got to be like 9 or 10 of those motherfuckers by now. Either way, I was excited a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, when they made that Mega Man 9, and they had it up on the systems. It was basically just an updated Mega Man game, and it was hard as hell, man. Like, I consider myself to be a Mega Man expert. I can play 1, 2, and 3 with ease. People have watched me beat 2 in like 25 minutes or less. Like, I can crush those fucking games. But 9 was hard as hell. That just took me back to the days when video games were really hard, which I did appreciate. But this Mega Man 11, it's not out yet. I think it's coming out next month. They do have the demo out there, so I was playing it on PS4. And woohoo, this shit is hard as hell too, man. I barely made it to the boss, and then the boss kicked my ass. So I'm not going to have all kinds of strategies or nothing like that for you. Just wanted to speak very clearly, very quickly, I should say, on what I noticed about the demo. So it's kind of hard because, in one hand, I appreciate that they're remaking and revamping the Mega Man series, but I do wish they kept some of the same sounds. Like, you know those iconic sounds when you pick up the power and it's like, or when you do certain things, you just get specific sounds. You don't get that in this new one. All the sounds are changed. Even when you get hit, you know how you used to like flash and sort of fall backwards? Now you just get stunned on the spot, which is really weird and awkward because if you're used to playing Mega Man games, that's really going to fuck your shit up a bit. And even the music just didn't feel as iconic. Mind you, this is a demo, so I don't know how much is going to switch and how much is going to change. Maybe they're going to hear some feedback and alter some things. But it really just, didn't feel too much like I was playing an old school Mega Man game, which is a good and a bad thing. I think your audience for this style of game is probably older people who want that more old school style. And yet, with the new technology, you got to revamp the graphics a bit. You got to revamp the music a bit. I'm sure they want to switch things up just so it's not the exact same game we've been playing forever. So I could see it being hit and miss. The only level you get to do, he's Block Man or Brick Man, something like that. He's just made of bricks. He kicked my ass completely because at one point he turns to this big guy and he's just smashing you. Hard to dodge, but it's just one of those things where once you know the pattern, it ain't going to be a problem. But I was pretty interested in this. They do have a new system where you have a gear system where you can actually slow time down. So if shit's getting too hectic, you can slow time down to dodge, maybe jump a hole and not get hit by an enemy or something like that. That's definitely going to be fun to fuck around with. And you can overcharge your blaster. You already know when you hold the button down in Mega Man games, you charge your blaster up, but you can even overcharge it now with this new gear system, I think is what it's called. But if you overheat, then you can't use the shit for a long time, so you have to make sure you plan how you're doing it. You can't spam it, whether you're stopping time or overcharging. So it's kind of cool, man. They definitely have the old school Mega Man feel. They switched it up and revamped it. But if you're a hardcore Mega Man fan or you love the classic sounds, the classic feeling and playstyle of the old games, there are going to be some instances that definitely throw you off. But so far, I like the demo. Not sure if I'm going to buy the game yet. It is just going to be a Mega Man game. It's going to be like $30 or $40, I believe. So to me, it depends on how long the game's going to be. I don't know if I want to spend $40 if it's something I can beat in an afternoon, but I don't think it's going to be like that. We'll see what's going to happen when the full game drops. But that's why I like spending money on RPGs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bought Persona. It was like 70, 80 bucks. I'm like 40 hours into that shit. I don't even think I'm halfway through, or maybe I'm about the halfway mark. So I definitely got my money's worth. You know what I mean? I'm going to get a lot of play on it. People have even said New Game Plus in Persona is a lot of fun, so you get extra hours on top. But we'll see what's going to happen, man. But those are my thoughts on the Mega Man 11 demo. I know it's kind of all over the place. I wasn't going to do it in this segment, but based on my timing a little bit, figured I'd just paste it on the end of this one here. So then in the last segment, we'll do that wrestling talk. That'll be the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so far for listening to this podcast. We got more coming. One more segment, WWE's Hell in a Cell.
Yo, this is 6:23 a.m. and I'm listening to the Luke James podcast. And if you want to hear any of my music or follow me, make sure you check out artdealerentertainment.com. Yeah.
All right, welcome back. Shout out to 6:23 a.m. for the drop. He's a dope underground artist I've reviewed many times, so you can check that out on the channel. But right now we're going to get into some wrestling talk because WWE just had their Hell in a Cell pay-per-view on Sunday. Now, I'm not as hardcore into wrestling as I was during the Monday Night Wars and Attitude Era, because that was just the greatest time in wrestling history, period, and I think it probably always will be. I know you could talk about some of the other stuff in the early 90s with guys like Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Macho Man, and Hulk Racist, and I was into wrestling back in those days as well. Wrestling has always been something that's been a part of my life, but these days I just don't have the time to keep up with it all. You got WWE with 3 or 4 shows a week, which is hard enough to keep up on, and then on top of that you have Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Lucha Underground, TNA, and so on. That is just way too much wrestling for me, but I think for the diehard fans it's great, because it's kind of like hip-hop in the sense that there's a little bit of something for everybody. All these promotions have their own unique style and brand of characters, so if you like wrestling, I don't know how you can complain in 2018 because there is so much of it. Although again, I will say those of us who experienced the Monday Night Wars and Attitude Era were spoiled. It was just so amazing back during that time where they just really didn't give a shit about all the different shticks they were doing on the Attitude Era. I mean, just when you look back at some of that footage, it's amazing that they got away with it because there's no way they would now. I'm talking about women getting beat with chairs, running around in panties and underwear all the time. That segment where Triple H was in the coffin, banging Kane's dead girlfriend, supposedly, like that shit was just ridiculous. I don't know if you guys remember that. The Katie Vick story, you can look it up. But like I said, right now there's just so much wrestling that any wrestling fan can find something they like. But that's just my little diatribe to kick this all off, just to let you know where I'm coming from with wrestling right now. I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch everything and know every single move and how to rank these matches, but I am going to tell you what I felt about some of these matches at Hell in a Cell. And I was honestly really impressed to see that Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton had one of the best matches. These two guys have been around forever, back during those times when I was really watching wrestling, and there was plenty of violence in this match, man. This shit felt like it could have been part of the Attitude Era, because it really had that feel to it. You had all those chair shots, belt shots, then there was that one spot where Randy Orton put a screwdriver through Jeff Hardy's earlobe. That shit was just, oh my god. That shit made me cringe. Not through his earlobe, but yeah, through his earlobe. You know how people, they get gauges, I think they're called, in their ears? He put it right through there and he twisted around. They just really weren't holding shit back with that one, so I liked that match a lot. There's some pretty cool spots that were happening as well. That one where Jeff Hardy had the ladder upside down outside and smashed through it, that was crazy. And then of course the ending where he was hanging from the ceiling and then dropped through the table. That's where he lost. Randy Orton won. But even still, man, it is just crazy to think what Jeff Hardy's body is going to feel like 10 years from now. That man has thrown himself off of damn near everything and taken some of the most ridiculous bumps of all time. So we got to show him love for what he's willing to do to keep us entertained. I just hope he doesn't kill himself, man. Remember a couple weeks ago he took this other bump where he actually hit his back on the apron. And that looked nasty as hell, man. I was almost worried that he paralyzed himself, but thankfully he was all right. So I love that match. I'd say that was one of my favorites of the night. And my other favorite was AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. Again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everybody and everything in the wrestling world, but I think these two are putting in some of the best work right now in the ring and even on the microphone. Because I think Samoa Joe in particular is doing some great stuff. Just that whole storyline where he's basically saying that he's banging AJ Styles' wife. You don't always got to keep shit complicated, you know what I'm saying? You don't always need these crazy storylines to make two guys hate each other. Just have one of them say, yo, I'm banging your wife, I'm going to take your family from you. That's all you need to get people to hate each other. So I like that sort of old school feel they have going on. And I just like when you have a speedier guy versus a more powerful guy in a match. It always makes for an interesting dynamic. Although if we're being honest, AJ is pretty damn strong too, because he lifted Joe up like it was nothing, and Joe himself is incredibly agile for a big man. I just think these two have a wide range of movesets, They're doing all kinds of different things in there. They've got a very big repertoire between them. But the only thing I didn't like about this match was that controversial finish where AJ tapped and the ref didn't see it. I understand it makes both of them look good. You can take that and sort of carry the story on. But even still, man, I just would like to see Joe with a title someday. And sometimes it gets annoying when they have endings like that. Like when you have a great match and it ends in a dumbass way, which I will talk about again because there was another match that did that on this pay-per-view. It really does take away from the whole match just a little bit in my opinion. But even still, that was a great match. I also thought the Becky versus Charlotte match was cool. And I was glad to see Becky win because it just seems like Charlotte has had it so many damn times. I feel like they're just fast-tracking her so that she's going to be basically the female version of her dad, Ric Flair, going to win that title, 16 times, maybe 17 times or whatever. But either way, I just think it's amazing how far women's wrestling has come. You look back to the late 90s and early 20s like I was talking about, and it was mostly just bra and panty matches, pillow fights, Stacy Keibler stripping in the ring, Candice Michelle, she was fine as hell doing all kinds of stuff. But, I ain't going to hate on that because back in the day, that was some boner fuel to all us teenagers, man. We were enjoying that shit in high school. But still, it is very cool to see women getting that real time to shine and show us what they can do in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Now they're actually showing that they can do just as much as the men, even more than that. I mean, you get women's matches now, and you're getting a lot of great ones. Whereas back in the day when there was a women's match, you're kind of like, I can probably just go to the bathroom for this one. I don't need to see it. Now it's the same thing with the Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss match here. Thought that was pretty good. But I'm probably in the minority when it comes to not being on the Ronda Rousey train. I don't think she's doing a bad job. She's actually come along quite fast. She's got the facial expressions and all that. But I'm just not a big fan of how she came right in. She took the title. She gets to steamroll all the women who have put in work and helped build the division. So, it is a genius business move because they're marketing the hell out of her. But I'm just not a big fan of her matches quite yet because you basically know she's going to win every time. Maybe they're going to build someone else up and that'll make me a bit more interested. But right now, she's just basically doing what you expect her to do, fucking everybody up. Now, I didn't watch the kickoff show where New Day kept the titles against Rusev Day. I got love for New Day, but, I don't usually watch the kickoff show because of time restraints and whatever. And I just didn't really give a shit about the Daniel and Brie versus Miz and Maurice match. I do like the Daniel and Miz angle. I think that's pretty cool how they've been going at it over the past year now. But involving their wives really doesn't make it any better for me. Not to mention the fact that I hate that Brie theme, that song that goes, Brie mode, meh, 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 meh. That shit makes me cringe every time. I'm just not a fan of her as a wrestler or a character in any way. Maurice, she's not amazing in the ring, obviously, so I don't know. I don't really care about this whole thing they have going on, but whatever. It's still happening. I'm sure part of this is tied into that Total Divas show as well, but that was a match that I would say was probably one of the worst ones, or at least the one that I cared about the least on this card. Now, another great match was Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. And simply put, this was just 4 extremely talented guys putting on a tag match clinic. Not going to do a full breakdown here, but this was definitely one of the most exciting matches. Just like the AJ and Joe match, there were plenty of moves flying around, drama, near falls, all that shit that you would want from a tag match with these guys. So I think it'll be fun to see how this shapes up as Seth and Dean continue to go after those titles. I also think it's cool how they got the Shield thing going on again because, hey, why not? Sometimes it's cool when they bring back these old school groups. Not that they're that old school. But even still, I think it's kind of cool that the Shield reunited. And lastly, I don't know if that's every match, but the only other match I really have to speak on is the main event with Roman versus Braun. And this was just an all-out shit show, man. Those two slugged it out for a while, but really I felt like things got more exciting and interesting once all that extracurricular shit started happening. So Seth and Ambrose, they were slugging it out on top of the cell against McIntyre and Dolph. To me that was more exciting than the actual match. Especially when Rollins and Dolph crashed off the side of the cage because that was just a crazy bump they took. And then the ending to this match was just dumb as hell, man. Brock comes out, fucks everybody up, and then the credits roll as the match is basically just called off. Was kind of fun to watch, but just like the AJ and Samoa Joe match, which I just talked about, it does kill the vibe a bit when you get a wonky finish. You just want a clear-cut winner sometimes, especially on a great card like this. I feel like this was a very solid pay-per-view, but to end it on that note, I wasn't excited or overly interested. I was just like, okay, here we go. Another screwy finish that sucks the air out of the room and kind of makes it all feel pointless. But overall, man, this was a pretty solid card. Definitely one of the better pay-per-views I've watched in a while. And going forward, I'll probably speak on some of the bigger ones like Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, but not everyone. Because like I said, I don't watch everything that goes on with wrestling. I don't always watch Raw, SmackDown. I don't even know if they do main event anymore. I know they have 205 Live or Live 205, whatever. I don't watch everything, but I will talk about the bigger events that even casual wrestling fans are into. If you're not into wrestling, don't worry. I'm not going to be breaking down every little thing on every episode, just doing a pay-per-view once in a while. So there you have it. Episode 2 is now in the books. Episode 3 is on the way. And as of now, I'm thinking that I'll be doing a breakdown of Kanye's discography from best to worst. That'll likely take up 2 segments, maybe even the full 3. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I thought that would be a fun little series to bring to the podcast. As I move forward, I'll have some of these different segments that'll reoccur. So I'm going to start with Kanye because he does have that Yandhi album coming up at the end of the month. I might even wait for that, actually. It might be good. You know, I might start working on my list now. Then when Yandhi comes out, I'll listen, do my usual review, and then shuffle it in there. We'll see what happens. But I thought that would be a fun segment for the podcast. So I'll do Kanye. Then I can do like Jay-Z, Eminem. I can do some other artists out there. Just something you could look forward to. And if you have any segments you want to suggest, by all means, again, let me know what topics you want. If you have questions, you can send them in to luke@redmattersite.com. That's SITE. Because what I think I'll do with all the questions I compile is put them in one episode. So every once in a while, I'll do a Q&A episode that's just questions and answers. That way it's fun. I'll do my regular thing with all the other episodes. Then when you see that FAQ episode, you know what it is. But that's that, man. Thank you very much for listening again. The first episode was received very well, so hopefully this one goes over well as well. Well. Deep hole was some water in it. I'm just rambling now. That's how I know it's time to wrap this shit up, man. It is late at night. I've had a busy day, been working hard on this podcast. I gotta get out of here. Thank you again for listening. Stay in touch. Let me know what you think. Hit up the comment section with your thoughts where we can continue the discussion. Thank you for listening, everybody. Peace.